Hey there, hope everybody is doing well and had a good weekend. Um, so I want to talk to you a little bit about what we'll be doing here in week 2 to get ready for week 3. As a reminder, my office hours are virtual this week. I came down with COVID at the end of last week, so I'm doing all right, but I don't want to breathe on anybody for a few more days. So obviously, we did not have class this week due to the holiday. This week, you do have some readings assigned, and we will be looking more in depth at the sciences over the course this week and looking at how people communicate in the sciences and what we need to do to be good consumers of information in the sciences and how we can be good conveyors of information in the sciences. So the things that we have to read this week. First off, we have chapter 17 in They Say, I Say, which talks about the writing in the sciences. And this academic context section of They Say, I Say is super helpful. So hopefully you will find yourself coming back to that as you move through this class and possibly even beyond. So as we talked about last week, in the sciences, the writing is very precise. It is very data-driven, as you'll see. And we are going to pay close attention to data in the coming weeks as we work on our own science writing project. We also have the essay, How to Mark a Book by Mortimer Adler. This is from the 1940s, but I find it still very relevant today, actually especially relevant today, as many of us have moved into reading mostly in electronic formats. I am a very paper-based person and I love physical books, but I also love the flexibility that digital texts give us. We're using digital text for this class, but I still have paper copies that I reach for. And Adler's suggestions, all of them may not apply to you, but I would encourage you to think about how you can be an active reader, what active reading strategies you currently use, and if any of Adler's suggestions maybe resonate for you. I want us to spend a little time on Monday talking about what our active reading strategies are. It's especially important when we're working with disciplines that maybe we're not as familiar with. Academic writing can be hard to understand. So it's good to have a lot of strategies kind of in our pocket to help us deal with that. We also have the article called The Science of Little House on the Prairie. I talked about that a little bit last week. That shows how different disciplines can work together to solve problems. And then we have the 2 articles on how to read a scientific paper, the serious one and the funny one, and a quick infographic on how to read a scientific paper. Keep in mind that as you're doing research for projects in any class, not just this class, that the abstract is important. It's there to help you save time. The idea is that you can look at that abstract and see if this article is what you're looking for, or if you need to go somewhere else without having to slog through the whole article from the beginning. And then we have APA documentation from Little Seagull, just a little introduction of how to manage APA. Excuse me. A document that shows you what's covered in lab reports. We'll be getting into scientific reporting in week 3. And I do ask you to annotate how to mark a book. So to leave a question or a comment, let's try to start a dialogue on there, and maybe we can refer back to that in class next Monday. And then your week 2 checkpoint, I ask you, of course, your questions or concerns. I'll ask you that pretty much every week. A scientific topic you want to learn more about, and where and how you get your science news. Whether you immediately realize it or not, you do get science news from somewhere, even if it's, just things you hear your friends talk about. If you watch the news or listen to the news or listen to podcasts, if you get it from social media. I get some of my science news from listening to NPR. I love to tune in to Science Friday. I subscribe to a few kind of fun science publications. But I also, find out about a lot of stuff just from general news stories. So let's think about where we get our science information, and maybe even where we want to get our science information. I think a lot of us are kind of aspirational and wanting to get more and better information from a variety of sources. So going back to science writing is objective. Science writing typically stays in third person. It's very precise, it's very well documented, and these are skills that we'll be working on as we move into our science writing project. Now, Monday night in class, I'm going to conduct a little experiment for everybody to observe, and we're going to practice our observation and documenting skills. And when I say documenting skills for Monday night, I don't mean APA documentation. I mean carefully noting what is happening and providing that information in a written format. And we're going to do basically kind of a practice lab report as a class. We're going to work together to do that. And that is going to be the practice for your science writing assignment. I like to give us a chance to practice as a group, give you some assignments that lead up to the big assignment, and then give you the opportunity to do it. So that way I feel like we kind of have our teaching, our practice, and then our execution laid out. So we'll have our little Mr. Wizard time in class on Monday night, and then, excuse me, you'll be able to choose an experiment to carry out on your own for your science writing project. So we'll go over the science writing project in detail in class on Monday night. I'm going to talk about it a little bit now, and I'm going to go ahead and open it because I know a lot of folks are curious and want to go ahead and make some decisions and get going with it. So for the science writing project, you will choose an experiment to carry out. I am providing a list of experiments that you can easily carry out at home, and you will first submit your methods for the experiment. The methods section of the lab report covers exactly how the experiment is carried out, what materials are used, what the steps are, exactly how it's done, very precisely written. I compare it to a recipe, right? When you have a recipe, you have a list of ingredients, perhaps a list of equipment, and a list of steps. And the experiments I'm providing you are kitchen-based. So a recipe is definitely part of one of these experiments. So you'll choose one and then design your experiment. Now, if you want to be told exactly what to do and you don't want to make any decisions, I would encourage you to go with the apple oxidation experiment. If you're a culinary student, if you like to get creative in the kitchen, I would encourage you to go with the baking experiment. So you pick your option. So in the week 3 folder, you will find the science writing project laid out, and then you will find a document that has the experiment options. So you'll pick your experiment, you will design your experiment, and then you will submit your method section to me next week. I will give you feedback on the methods to make sure that you're on the right track, and then you will carry out the experiment, you will document it, you will create your science writing report. We will do a true peer review in class. Now, I know that you hear peer review, you probably think about, well, I exchange papers with a partner. Yeah, but in the academic world, peer review is a bit different. Peer review means generally kind of a committee of a couple of people in the field look at the work and decide whether it is, whether it's substantial enough for publication. Does it hold up to scrutiny? Can the experiment be replicated? I'm not going to ask y'all to replicate each other's experiments, but I am going to ask you to look at each other's reports and determine whether they are ready for publication for our audience. Now, if they're not, you've got the opportunity to work on that. But essentially, as a peer reviewer, you will be signing off and saying, yes, this should be published, or, oh, we need to figure out X, Y, and Z and get these issues fixed. And then the final step in the process, of course, revisions and all that can take place, will be then summing up your findings into kind of a quick news release that would go to the public. So I know that sounds like a lot. I've got it broken down. So Monday night in class, we observe an experiment and collaborate on a lab report. Then you choose your own experiment, you design it and submit your methods, get feedback, carry out your experiment, document it, draft your lab report, peer review, submit the lab report, and then submit the little news release. So all of that together will be your science writing project. So I'm expecting this to be a lot of fun. I'm pretty excited about it. Another piece that we'll be working on, of course, is APA documentation. You've got a nice introduction from Little Seagull this week. I've added some resources into the week 3 folder and into the course resources section on APA. And in week 3, you will have some inquisitive activities to help you get used to APA. So one of the big differences between MLA and APA, first of all, APA is a lot more structured about the papers themselves. Formal reports will have a title page and an abstract. We will be using MRAD format. That's not just specific to APA, but we will be using that for this report. I'll talk a bit more about those bits and pieces in class next week. APA uses a references page instead of a works cited. The in-text citations include the year, and they include a P period before the page number, and there are comments between the author and the year and the page number. So with APA, you've got a little bit more in the citations. The reference entries look a little bit different from works cited, but you've all had some experience with MLA, and knowing the components that go into a works cited entry that will absolutely help you create your reference entries. So the resources in week 3 will be very helpful in showing you the differences between MLA and APA and hopefully helping you get a little bit more comfortable. So like I said, I'll talk about all of the science writing project much more in depth on Monday in class. Remember that at the start of class on Monday, there will be a quick little quiz in Blackboard. The quizzes button is there. You just can't see it yet because I haven't deployed a quiz yet. Once I have the quiz sitting in there waiting for you, you'll see it magically appear, and I'll remind everybody at the start of class and point that out. So come prepared to observe, come prepared to take down some observations, and then to work collaboratively together to create our practice lab report. So for those of you who like to work ahead and look ahead, if you have any questions about the project, you can certainly contact me. Office hours will be virtual, but we can set up a virtual appointment, and I'll be checking the email. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I am looking forward to being back in the classroom with you on Monday night. Y'all take care, and please be in touch if I can help.